as we are talking about this message today, I don't want to spoil any plots this morning. But as we talk about this subject matter today, I want us to move forward from this place with two principles in mind. Two very solid biblical principles that I want to undergird every point and every other word that we speak this morning. Number one is that as you take inventory of your life, as you look at the balance sheets, as you think about the things that you have, things that you possess, what you have in your hand, all of those things, I want you to understand that those all, 100% in its entirety, belongs to God. Every bit of it, every piece of it. And then the second thing I want you to keep in mind is this, that when we speak about material blessing, when we talk about an increase in blessing, I want you also to relate to that an increase in responsibility. So with that being said, let's jump into our message today, and we're going to continue this series of messages, Matters of the Heart. Now, in the realms of Christianity, I find something that's very disturbing to me. And that is that, sometimes we as believers, we are extremists. Amen? Come on, somebody. And we tend to swing the pendulum real wide, and we either go to an extreme over here or we'll go to an extreme over here. And let me qualify that statement for just a second here. This is going to be a message about stewardship this morning, okay? And we'll say a little bit more about that, but the Bible has a lot to say about how we handle material things. And it says so much about how we handle material things because God in His infinite wisdom knows that the thing that is most going to rival Him for the lordship of your life and the headship of your heart are the things that you hold in your hands. Now, when we look at this, I said there are two extremes we usually find in Christianity, and those two extremes are this. You've got the folks on this side that they villainize people of material means. In other words, if somebody has increased in goods in this life, in this world, then obviously they have, compromised or sold out in some kind of way, and maybe they've done something dishonest to get what it is. Heaven forbid that God bless them. And they have the things that they have, and in doing so, they make an idol out of their own poverty. On the other hand, we've got some people there that they will, look upon those who have not, and they will look at them as if there's something wrong with them, or maybe their faith is broken. I think the greatest comeback line I've ever heard on any such prosperity teaching like that was once upon a time, one pastor was up speaking, and he told the people, he said, "My faith has gotten me a Learjet. What has yours got you?" And some guy said back, "My faith delivered me from the vanity of wanting one." So you've got people on this side, they'll idolize the material blessing. But somewhere in the middle, and you say, "Pastor, which one do you think's right?" And I'll tell you, neither one. Neither one. I don't think it matters. I don't believe that the blessing of God for your life is contingent upon what you've got in your pocket here this morning. I don't think He cares what your house looks like. I don't think He cares what kind of car you drive this morning. I don't think He cares what your portfolio is shaped like, necessarily. I mean, obviously we need to be good stewards, but I mean as far as His love and concern and blessing for your life. And here's the reason why I say that. In the Bible, we see God's favor resting upon so many people from various socioeconomic statuses all across the board. I want you to think with me for just a minute. Think with me about men like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, David, Solomon. All of these people are people that are classified in the Word. As you read through their life stories, you find that these people were very, very wealthy according to the world standard of wealth. They were very wealthy people. They also bore names like, friend of God, man after God's own heart, As a matter of fact, one of these guys that I mentioned, he even was given the name that became the national name for God's chosen people. Then on the other hand, I think about people also like the widow. The little widow lady who only had a handful of meal and a little bit of oil, and she was about to cook her last morsel of bread that she could scrounge up, and she and her son were going to eat those few morsels of bread, and then they were going to wait to die of starvation. But because the widow honored God first with what she had, His blessing and His favor visited her household, and she was spared. So today I want to tell you that the issue of a right relationship with God is not what you have, but what has you. It's not how many things you have, but how many things have you. I think about that widow casting her 2 mites into the treasury while the others passed by and gave the large sums, and Jesus commended her above all others because of her sacrificial giving. You see, it's not about what we have, but it's about what has us, and most of the time what has us is due to confusion about what we have. There you go. Chew on that one for a minute. I said sometimes things have us because of a confusion about what we actually have. You see, I'm not so quick to fall in love with or become enslaved by something that's not really mine to begin with. We tend sometimes to develop a false sense of ownership. Here, let me illustrate this for you. Now, I want you to really participate with me this morning, okay? How many of you are really going to get in here with me and participate this morning? Because I am going to make you feel pain here in the next few minutes, okay? It's going to be so real and so vivid that you're just going to, you're going to want to get a hold of me after this is over with, okay? But I want you to suppose for just a minute that you're getting ready to take a trip. You're going to go across town. You're going to go to the gym, and you don't have any pockets, and you know that the people pick the locks at the lockers and all that good stuff. You just don't. You know there's not a safe place for you to put your stuff. So you have approached me, and you've said, "Hey, pal, I'm getting ready to go someplace, and I don't have a good spot to keep my $1,000 that I just happen to carry around for walking around money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to entrust to you," thank you very much, by the way. This is, see, that's, nice money clip, by the way. Classy. So this is yours. This is where I want you to get involved. I want you to imagine for a moment that you have handed me 1,000 bills here. Okay? And you say to me, "I'm going to a place and I don't know that I can take this with me, but I want to entrust to your care my $1,000. Now, while you're away and until the time that you return, it would probably be in my best interest that I exercise a good sense of ownership, would it not?" Oh, y'all sat there quiet like that. The girl at the register shortchanged you 50 cents. You stood there for 30 minutes arguing about it. Come on, you know this is real. You're going to want me to know that what I'm holding in my hand belongs to you, right? Absolutely. You're going to want me to care for it. Not like it's mine, because you've seen what I do with my money. Right? You know that it's somewhere in a whirlwind. But you want me to know that this is yours. This is yours. I need to treat it like it's yours. Now, if I'm holding this and I've got a good grasp on that fact that this is yours and not mine, then in that instance, I'm not going to get all googly-eyed and start thinking about how I'm going to waste this. Why? Because it's not mine. It's been entrusted to me. Now, when you come to inquire about your $1,000, I better have one of two things. Your $1,000? Or a really, really good explanation? Right? One place where people really struggle with the issue of the heart is in the area of material possessions and money and things and such. And the reason I believe that so many people struggle so badly with these things is the fact that we develop a false sense of ownership. See, I start calling this my money. Whose money is this? Right. It's not mine, right? It's yours. It belongs. You gave it to me. You entrusted it to me. And somehow we can get the idea that even though we're holding somebody else's stuff in our hands, it's exclusively ours. At our discretion, we just do with it as we please. We get a little something in our hands and we set to keep up with the Joneses. We buy all kinds of junk that we don't need to impress people that we don't like with money that we don't have. Just so somebody will think something about us that we really ain't. And I know that you spent your time, you gave your efforts, and now it's your reward. But the truth of the matter is that it was God's time that you spent. It was God's strength that you exerted. It was God's increase that has been granted to you. Listen to this. Acts chapter 17, verse 28 says this, "For in Him we move and breathe and have our being." Psalm 54:4 says, "Surely God is my help. The Lord is the one who sustains me." How did you get here today? Because God drug your body up out of the bed this morning and breathed life and breathed strength into you and give you the ability to be here. It's the same way you'll make it to work tomorrow morning. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 18 says this, listen, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." The talents, the skills, the abilities that we possess, they were invested in us by God. That business savvy, that marketable skill, that physical prowess, that unique ability, it all came from God. It's not just you hustling to get your market share. You should. You should be vigilant. You should be diligent. But you need to do that to the best of your ability. And we won't even get into the fact this morning that the Word says that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Sure, the resources of this earth, they've been sawn, forged, hewn, pressed into all manner of shapes, forms, and sizes to create almost anything you can imagine, and some of those things will blow our minds, but they have all been pulled from one resource. And that one resource is the creation whereupon the Spirit of God hovered upon its formless face and acted in accordance with the Word and the will of the Almighty. And from the nothingness that was, everything that is came to be. Haggai chapter 2 verse 8 says this, "The silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord Almighty." Surely they've cast a little coin and they've put somebody else's likeness upon it, but the base substance belongs to God. It's all His. And we're just holding the bag. But it belongs to Him. And you may be thinking in your mind right now, well, preacher, if it all belongs to Him, this seems a little bit unfair, because if it all belongs to God, then why is it not distributed more evenly among everyone? Come on, somebody, you know what I'm saying, right? Why is my bag not as big as my neighbor's? And if you're a hard worker and it seems like life just keeps getting you down and you can't get ahead, hey, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, and I wish I had a better answer for you today, but suffice it to say, can I just unload a truth on you this morning? And I hope you'll love me after it's over. Life is not fair. Life is not fair. It's not fair, and it doesn't have to be fair. And the fact that it's not fair, however, does not release us from responsibility. And really, fairness, according to our personal estimation, is of no consequence to the discussion. Now, let's just stop letting unfairness ruin our day and get on with the business of living our lives and honoring God. What do we learn from Scripture? We learn from Scripture that while not all things meet our standard of fairness, everything meets God's standard of justice, and that needs to be enough for us to walk in obedience to His Word and to His will. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, and here's where the issue of the heart becomes a problem. It's easy to feel those feelings that we stated earlier, to say, listen, hey, we earned it. It's ours. Or maybe we equate God's blessings with lottery winnings. Everybody wants a blessing. But the truth is that with an increase of blessing comes an increase of responsibility. Increased responsibility to honor God with our goods, an increased responsibility to exercise the faithfulness of a steward over that with which God has blessed us, and a greater responsibility to steward. The main thing is our hearts in light of the blessing. You know, sometimes people get the blessing and they forget about the heart issue. Pastor Lisa and I have had this discussion often, that we have witnessed it in the lives of many, many people, that they will pray and seek God and pray and seek God and pray and seek God and pray and seek God. Maybe they're praying about a house. They want to purchase a house. Maybe they're praying for a child. They want to have a child. They might be, or maybe they're wanting this particular job, whatever the case is. And time after time, I've seen it play out that once they get what it is that they've been praying for, then God just kind of takes a back seat. We forget. We forget that we still need to be at the altar before God, laying our heart out before Him, beyond getting what we want from Him. Tell you what, let's go back to our illustration here for just a minute. Let's suppose for just a few minutes this morning that you were so kind to me that when you entrusted to me your $1,000, you said, Steve, I've got plenty. I knew you did. You weren't fooling me. You said, so, and I really appreciate you keeping this for me and handling this for me. So what I want you to do is, I'm just going to give you $900. Out of that 1,000 you're holding, if you have any kind of need, if you need to put a roof over your family's head, if you need to put clothes on their back, or you need to put food in their bellies, or you need to get an education that's going to help you further yourself and advance in your career to provide for your family, then I want you to use any of that in that way. And you know what I say to you? Thank you so much. Thank you. That is a tremendous blessing. That's going to help my family. And you're saying, let's see, you're saying here all that you want me to hold back is $100 out of the 1,000. I need to have that ready for you when you come back, right? Yes, sir, that's right. Okay. All right. Then suddenly something happens to me, and I get that same euphoric feeling that I get on payday. And the spirit of want just comes all over me. And you know what? I remember what you said about the $100, but I got a couple of things I need to do first here. All of y'all know I like a good pair of shoes. I don't need any shoes, mind you. I've got 35 pair in the closet, but I want one more. Them shoes is fly. I'm going to buy me some shoes. I've got an iPhone 6. I think they're out with the 7 now, Stone. I'm going to need to get me another phone. I'm going to need to buy me some shades. Some bubble gum. And Brian, Nobody loves a good cone of ice cream any more than me. Oh, woo. My stack's getting a little slim here. Oh, goodness gracious. My stack's getting a little slim, but I still got to pay the light bill. And this joker here wants the rent. And Lord, help me, Jesus. I got just enough for the car payment. And I got this fancy clip. So, I want to share with you a passage from Exodus chapter 23 and verse 19. And it says this, the first of the first fruits of your land shall you bring into the house of the Lord your God. So you come back a little while later, and there I am with your money clip way down deep in my pocket. Whew. And I say, hey, how was your trip? And you say, it was good. Well, had a good time. Everything went well. And I said, okay, well, good. I'm glad you had fun. Everything went well. And, I hope you just did everything, just the Lord blessed you and kept you. And I'm going to ramble on like I ain't got no sense for 30 minutes because I don't want you to ask me nothing else. And finally, I stop to take a breath, and you say, okay, how about that $100? And that's when I'm going to have to look at you and say, well, see, what had happened was, see, the $900, you see, was more than enough to take care of my needs. But before I started on paying off the things that I needed to pay on, well, I decided I would get me some new shoes, and I got me a new phone, and I got me, some other things, and I got me some bubble gum and some bling, and I got all kinds of stuff. And then before I knew it, before I even realized what I had done, I had spent the whole thing. How do you feel right now? Wait, hang on just a minute. This was yours, okay? I was just holding it for you. Now, how do you feel right now? Do you feel robbed? Do you sense that maybe you were robbed? As a matter of fact, one of the 8 questions that are asked in the book of Malachi is this: will a mortal rob God? Yet you rob me, but you ask, how are we robbing you? And he says, in tithes and offerings, you're under a curse, your whole nation, because you're robbing me. Sometimes we talk about the principle of seed time and harvest. Do you know why sometimes we never see a harvest? Because we devoured all the seed before it ever got in the ground. We robbed God and we wasted it, and we never sowed it where we should have. You feel robbed, but to add insult to injury, the fact still remains that you gave me 100% of what I had in my hand, and you instructed me to spend 90 on whatever I needed, and you only asked me to reserve 10%. And I had no regard for it. I had no regard for you. The only thing that I cared about was what it would do for me. And I have robbed you. Now, at this point, what do you think of me? I can tell you what you think of me right now. Nothing. Because what this says that I think of you is ringing so loudly in your heart, you haven't stopped to consider anything about me. What does it say about me? It says that I don't honor our friendship at all. It says that I've put myself above you. It says that my treasure is not in our friendship itself, but in what I can get out of it. It says a lot to you about where my treasure is, and this is a vivid display that you are not it. So here's the clincher concerning responsibility for our blessing and to keep a healthy perspective of our blessing, and that is this, that Jesus said we're talking about matters of the heart, the condition and the content of our spiritual man, and that is this, that Jesus says, for where your treasure is, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In the same way that the words we speak are an indicator of the content of our heart, what we do with what God has blessed us with is a powerful indicator of where our treasure is in this life. And the truth is that where our treasure is, there our hearts will be also. So here's the truth of the matter, and it makes people uncomfortable when we begin to talk about things like money in church. I know it does. People start checking out mentally, but the truth of the matter is that Jesus Christ Himself knew the great allure that material things would have over our lives. That's why He spent such a great deal of time talking to His followers about how to handle those things. And how did Jesus know the allure of worldly riches? Because in the gospel it accounts that the devil took Him up to a high place and showed Him the kingdoms of the earth and said, all of these things can be yours if you'll bow and worship me. You know what Jesus did, right? No deal, right? No deal. There's a lot we could say from this point about the principle of tithing, but suffice it to say that the Bible is explicitly clear that one of the major rivals to the Jesus' lordship in our lives is that of material wealth. We're expected to be faithful with the little, just the same as we're expected to be faithful with much. Therefore, God has entrusted us with whatever we have, and has given us a way to know that whether we have it or it has us. And the way He says that He's going to do that, to know really who's on the throne in our hearts. He's going to give us all. Everything that we need. My God shall supply your need according to His riches and glory. And He's given us a way, because earlier I said the issue of a right relationship is not what you have, but what has you. And He says that He's given us a way that we can measure and we can know what really has us. Who's really the Lord of our lives? Who's really on the throne of our hearts? He says, I'm going to give you 100%. You use 90%. I think that's a generous deal, by the way. I really do. I think that is more than appropriate. You know, that God gives us everything and allows us to use 90%. None of us in this room would negotiate any such a deal. Right? We wouldn't be, that's not fair. You want to talk about fairness? That's not fair. Somebody give you 100% and ask you back for 10? That's not fair. But He's given us a great indicator that lets us know where we really stand in our relationship with Him. Is He really the Lord of our lives? Do we honor Him with all that we have? Is He the King of Kings? Is He the Lord of Lords in our hearts? We learn the content of our hearts with the words that we speak. But we learn who is actually on the throne of our hearts by what possesses us. Let me challenge you in this way. And I want you to understand this morning. This message has absolutely nothing to do with the treasury of this church. God is blessed. His favor rests upon us. We've got excellent stewards that serve on our board that take good care of what God's entrusted to us. This is not about a building campaign. This is not about some special fund. This is about you and me personally in our relationship to God. This is not about what you can give to the church, but this is about how God wants to bless you and cause His favor to rain down in your life. This is about you not missing a blessing. Because here's the one thing. So many times we want to put out fleeces, and we want to do this, and we want to test God, and we want to try that, and and there's some validity in some of those things in certain situations and times. But this is one area in life that God gives us an open invitation and says, hey, try me. You remember those people that were so confident and so sure, and you said, you're not going to do that, and they said, oh, yes, I am, try me. In the Word, God says, try me. Just try me with this. Try me, says the Lord, and see if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that you would not be able to contain. I'm sharing you this message this morning not because I want our giving to increase, but because I want God's blessing on your life to increase. I want your heart to be in the right place before God as it concerns these things, and that you're getting the obstacles out of the way, because God said, give and it'll be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall all men pour into your bosom. So let me challenge you in this way. Even if you're in need today, I want to challenge you to trust God by tithing on your increase for the next 90 days. Just straight up, first fruits, before anything else. God, I'm going to trust you. And see if He doesn't open the windows of heaven. Not grudgingly, but with a heart that says, Lord, I'm going to place my trust in you. If you've been blessed, let me encourage you to honor God with the first fruits of your increase.